Welcome to the channel. My name's Bud. Today we're out at the apple tree and I'm going to show you how you can assure that you get maximum size and maximum quality from your apples this year. That's up next. On this channel I feature home improvement ideas and solutions. If that kind of thing appeals to you, make sure that you do hit that subscribe button. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So the tree behind me is a Golden Delicious tree, and what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about pruning, which is done earlier in the year, of course. And now that it's June, I'm going to talk a bit about June drop, what that is, and also we'll talk about how you can thin your tree to assure that you get maximum quality in your harvest. The tool that I'm using today is a pair of Fiskars pruning tools. I purchased these off of Amazon and they do a real nice job of both pruning and also thinning. So there's two things you typically want to do to help your tree produce the highest quality harvest of apples. The first thing you want to do is in early spring. In early spring you want to do a decent pruning of your tree to thin it out. What I've done this year is that I've pretty much made a bowl shape trimming. In other words, I took the center out of the tree. If you look up here and look around the tree, you'll see that it's open pretty much in the center. I did that to allow maximum sun and airflow to the surrounding branches. And the reason I did that is because I typically get what is known as sooty blotch. And sooty blotch occurs because there's not enough ventilation or air moving through the tree, and also there's not enough sunlight that reaches all the branches, so that increased humidity often results in a hazy, kind of smoky surface on the apples. Sooty blotch doesn't really harm the fruit, but it's just not very appealing. By doing a proper pruning, you ensure that maximum energy goes to the select fruit. In addition to the pruning is that in the month of June, when the apples start forming, you want to make sure that you limit the clusters and the amount of apples on the branches to no more than 1 or 2 per cluster. Now, the tree has thinned itself pretty well. There are some instances which you can see right here where you have 3 apples in a cluster, and that's not ideal. So what you want to do in those cases is you want to remove the smallest apple or apples so that you have maximum nutrition going to 1 or 2 apples. So in addition to the tree's natural pruning or June drop, I am going to go through and I'm going to remove some of these apples to ensure that that maximum potential goes to the remaining apples. Now the tree has a natural selection process that's called June drop, where the tree naturally drops some of the apples that are weaker or less likely to produce. This is the tree's natural selection process to ensure the best crop. You can help that process by further thinning the tree to ensure that clusters of 3 or more apples are reduced to only 1 or 2 apples. Okay, in the case of this current cluster here, if you take a brief look at these apples, they're all pretty uniform, and as far as the quality, they're all pretty much the same quality. Since there's several other apples on this branch, I'm going to remove 2 of those. I'm just going to snip off those 2 and leave the 1 remaining apple there so that it'll receive more nutrition and grow better. And I'll just repeat this process throughout the tree where I see more than a couple apples in a single cluster. And really that's all there is to thinning your apples to ensure the maximum growth gets to the individual apples. In addition, I'll show you up here, if you see this particular apple, it is smaller and it's also somewhat deformed. It doesn't look like, it kind of looks like it's dying off. So I want to go ahead and remove any apples like that that might be stealing some of the growth potential that is available to the other good apples on that branch. Another very good example where you have a cluster of apples, 3 apples in very close proximity. One of the apples, as you can see, has a blemish there that makes it less attractive. I'm probably going to take these 2 smaller apples out in favor of the larger apple to ensure that it receives maximum nutrition and that the growth is devoted to that larger apple on that branch. Here's another example of 3 apples in close proximity, and the smaller one appears to be drying out and wilting. So that's just taking unnecessary energy from the tree. We'll go ahead and remove that one as well. Yet another example of 3 apples growing in very close proximity. I'm going to take the smallest of the 3 and leave the remaining 2. So that's the general idea. You just take and thin the tree well so that the tree's energy is devoted to a select few apples, and that way you'll ensure maximum size and best quality crop. I'll check back in as we get later in the fall. We'll look in on these apples to see how they're doing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.